We are going to start this tutorial off strong and work on the sleeves first. We'll get the placket installed and then work on the cuff. So what I have here are two pieces for the placket, and I have the wrong side of the shirt marked as well as where I'm going to be placing the placket. On your pattern, this placket facing will be one piece and one side will be taller than the other. And that's because throughout this process learning how to put this together, I discovered that it's necessary, and you'll see why as we go a little bit further in. So now we're just going to stitch up. We're going to cross over the top at 1/4 of an inch seam allowance and come down the other side. And then I'm going to mark here where these little edges in about 3/8 of an inch. And this is telling me where, once this is stitched on, where to stop my center cut and then where to clip into the edges. Okay, so now we're going to lay this flat and we're going to take our scissors and cut up the middle to that point that we drew earlier. And then where we reach that little tip, then we're going to turn and cut into the corners as close to the stitching as we possibly can, but don't clip the stitches. Now, after doing that, we want to take it over to the ironing board and iron both sides in 1/4 of an inch. Now that we have both edges ironed in 1/4 of an inch, what we're going to do now is flip this to the right side. This part can be a little fiddly, but just do your best. Turn it to the right side and then finger press both of these flaps open. And then what I like to do is just keep everything nice and crisp. I'm going to take it over to the ironing board and give it a good press before we move on to the next step. So starting with the skinnier side, we're going to take this edge and we're going to fold it over so that it's about 1/8 of an inch past the stitching. You don't want to fold it in half necessarily, but you just want to fold it until it covers the stitching. This finishes this side. And then we're going to edge stitch about 1/8 of an inch all the way down on one side to secure it. Okay, now that we have that first side stitched down, what we're going to do is work on the other side. I'm going to take this over to the iron and I'm going to iron this seam flat and then fold this down about 3/4 of an inch and iron that flat. Okay, now that we have that ironed nice and crisp, what we're going to do is the same thing on this side that we did on the other. We're going to take that side that's got the 1/4 inch seam allowance and fold it over until it's hiding that line of stitches. So I'm going to pin it real quick just to keep it in place. After you pin that edge down, what you want to do is pull the placket so that it's stacked on top of the other side that's already finished. And I'm just going to put a clip in here before we top stitch it just to keep everything together. And then what we'll do is, because this part can be a little bit fiddly, what we want to do now is edge stitch it from the bottom edge about 1/8 of an inch away all along the top, and then you're going to come down and only go down about 1/2 an inch. So basically what we're doing here is we are catching the gap from the shorter side. We want to make sure that that is closed in. You can see here there's a little gap there right here. What we want to do is bring our stitch just below that so that gets caught in the seam allowance and you don't see that from the inside. And then this is what it looks like from the back. Once we top stitch that, it'll be finished from the inside as well. Okay, the placket is complete. Look how good this looks. Nice little top stitch. It looks really nice and finished from the back. Great job. And since this is our first time doing it, there are some hiccups. We learned a lot, but you'll get better over time. Let's move on. Okay, now we're going to work on the pleats. So you should have transferred your notch marks from your pattern onto your shirt sleeve. We're going to start with the last pleat, the second notch in. We're going to pinch that and just fold it to the most outer notch, meet those up and pin it or clip it. And we'll do the same thing for the pleat closest to the placket. Okay, now that we have both of our pleats done, we're going to take it over to the sewing machine and stitch just a basting stitch to hold this together. Fun fact, do not stitch the placket down here. We are going to need to have this open later, and so don't do what I'm doing and stitching the placket closed. Just base stitch or stay stitch the two pleats, and that's all you need to do. Okay, now that the plackets are done, we are going to set these aside and we're going to work on the cuffs. Fold over one long edge of your cuff to the wrong side, about 1/4 inch. And then you're going to bring right sides together, just like this, and clip it just to hold it together. And before we sew the two ends, we're going to unfold that lip. You want to make sure that you don't stitch this with that folded down. We're going to stitch on both sides. Make sure that you don't stitch it with that folded, because we're going to use that edge right there to attach it to the shirt. Now we need to stitch the sleeves together so we can add the cuff on. Don't forget to take care of your raw seams on the inside to keep your project nice and neat. You can either use a zigzag stitch like I'm doing here or a serger. Now we're going to attach the cuff to the sleeve, and this is where that little lip that we made earlier is coming in handy. So we're going to start with one end and take it right sides together, pin it all the way around to the other edge of the cuff. And also, this is the reason why you don't stitch your placket down, because we have to have it open in order to attach the cuff. All right, let's turn our sleeve right side out, double check that our cuff went on there nicely, and make sure that those raw edges on both ends of the cuff are nice and tucked in there. This looks really good. Clip that to hold it in place, and then check the other side, clip that. Make sure everything is laying nice and flat underneath that cuff. And then what we'll do is have one final stitch that will attach it to the sleeve about 1/8 inch away from the edge all the way down. All right, let's get to putting the shirt body together. Now, I always put 2 marks for the back and 1 mark for the front, and then an X on the wrong side of the fabric, so I can tell the difference when I'm working with fabric like this. Sometimes it's very difficult to tell what is the right side. So we're going to pin this shoulder seams together on both sides and take it to the sewing machine. Now let's go ahead and do the side seams. Let's add the sleeve to the body. So what you're going to do is with the shirt inside out and the sleeve right side out, you're going to come in through the neck hole and you're going to align right sides together, starting with the top seam. I always do the seams first, the top and then the bottom, and then I work my way around the rest of the sleeve. Typically, you would have to ease the top portion, the sleeve cap, in to the armhole, and that's because it's typically a little bit bigger. But for the sake of this, I didn't want to have a lot of bunching or have to do any of that, so I made it fit just perfectly into the armhole. Make sure to finish your edges with a zigzag or a serge here. Let's work on the neckband. So before we get started on this though, make sure that you have your notches transferred from the pattern to your neckband. And then you're going to bring the raw edges together, right sides, and stitch with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. This will be your center back seam. Fold your neckband in half, wrong sides together with the raw edges meeting, and make sure that you've transferred the notches from the pattern onto the neckband. This will make getting it on the shirt a lot easier. So you can just line the notches up. Make sure you put that seam to the center back. And then don't be alarmed when you get the neckband on there that it's smaller than the shirt. That is by design because we want to stretch in between those notches a little bit to gather the shirt up into the neckband. This is a really important step to do after you put your neckband on. We want to top stitch it, and this is going to give it a really nice finished look. So what I'm doing here is top stitching it just below the stitch line that we've created, and making sure that the seam allowance is nice and flat. It's all going the same direction. And I'm spreading the fabric out where we've had to kind of bunch it up to get it to fit into the band. You just take your time here. It is worth the effort and it looks so nice. I mean, look at this. Okay, let's do a quick little check-in. So just want to lay it flat, take a look at everything, make sure that seams look good, and we're happy with how everything is coming along. Look at this neckline. I just think that top stitching looks so nice. So the last thing that we have to do is add the bottom hem and add our buttons or snaps. Let's get to it. For the hem, I'm just going to turn this under 1 inch and top stitch it. If you have a twin needle, here is a really great place to use that. It gives it that super professional look. And for the cuffs, I've decided to do snaps instead of buttons. Adding the snaps is a whole thing all on its own. We will go through a tutorial on that in another video. I just wanted to show you what the process was of putting these on. It is very easy. I highly recommend investing in a tabletop press or even just like a handheld to help you get these on. This is the final look. I absolutely love how it turned out. If you made this with us, tag us on Instagram at Always Shine Your Heart. I'd love to see what you made. Thanks for watching.